Hello and welcome. Thank you for joining us again today. We're going to be discussing generative AI in the chemical industry. I'm Jacqueline Wasem, head of marketing at Nesh, a sales AI platform designed specifically for chemical and materials companies and their commercial teams. Today, I'm joined by Brendan Boyd and Sid Gupta. Would you both like to introduce yourselves?
Sure. I'm Sid. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Nesh, chemical and petroleum engineer by training, and then running Nesh for the last 6 years now. Brendan?
Thanks. Hey, my name is Brendan Boyd. I'm a R&D executive in the chemical industry, about 25 years of experience. Thanks, Sid. Appreciate you taking the call today. So you hear a lot about how AI can help to revolutionize different kind of general business processes. So what are the different ways that AI can play a part in kind of improving the operability or improving the capability for different groups within the chemical industry?
Yeah, when we think about that, I mean, I look at the value chain within the chemical sector, right? Like, how does it start from start to finish? It's R&D, there's process, there's supply chain, there's sales, there's marketing, legal, product management, like all of those things fit in. And I feel like there's an opportunity for generative AI, and if not generative AI, then AI, traditional AI in general, to affect each one of those steps. And I've seen on the R&D side, I mean, I'm sure you have experience with that one too, was like in new molecule development, there are companies out there, they're doing a phenomenal job in helping companies figure out new products to build and new molecules to create. We've seen companies like Uncountable in that space using Gen AI for that purpose. Then if I go a little bit downstream of that in the process development, like in the factories or in the actual plants, there are tools, or I wouldn't say they're Gen AI tools, but there are other AI tools that look at predicting when an equipment will fail, or when some sort of an event will happen, or making sure that the quality of the products are good, and if they are falling behind, then try to detect. So that's another application that we've seen. Like if you keep going further on the supply chain side of things, we've seen trying to predict when the demand will rise, or trying to kind of match up with that. That's another area. Again, I don't think that's Gen AI, but still more traditional AI helping with that. On the product management side, on the sales side, I think that's a huge impact that Gen AI can create, like helping onboard new sales reps, helping them figure out the products that they can sell. And then also on the marketing side, creating all the collateral that the teams need to then enable the salespeople with. And then I think on the customer service side as well, I feel like even in the back office, like legal teams can use Gen AI for contract management, or trying to evaluate regulations and how it affects the industry. I think there are a ton of different use cases, right? If you map the value chain in the sector, there's a lot of different areas where it can actually create value.
So the one about sales was an interesting one to me. So, the way that in the past, when I've worked with cross-functional teams where, you're watching your sales and you're trying to make sure that all the different opportunities in the funnel are getting worked on, usually I have cross-functional teams there. And cross-functional teams being, obviously sales, you'll usually have somebody from marketing, somebody from R&D or technical services, somebody from product regulatory, and then somebody from product management. And, the reason why you have these cross-functional teams is because all of you are supporting the sales. They always have that kind of comment that sales is the tip of the spear. So there's one tip, but then they've got the shaft of the spear right behind them, right? And it takes a large group to make sure that those folks have the information that they need. So, when you think about generative AI being applied in the sales space, what are some of the potential benefits for how Gen AI could be used? Maybe help me understand maybe how it could be used, and then what are some of the potential benefits?
Yeah, it was one of the things that we saw in the last couple of years, like 2023, 2024, was a lot of experimentation with generative AI. Like a lot of companies were trying a lot of different things, so many pilots. I remember being in a room where the speaker asked how many companies in the room are trying out generative AI, and then almost every room in the hand went up. And they asked how many people in the room are using Gen AI in production, and then almost every hand went down and only 2 hands remained up. So that kind of tells you the state of the industry, where a lot of people are experimenting. And I think 2025 is going to be the year where a lot of these companies actually realize which use cases create value for them and which use cases have a more longer term horizon in front of them. And I'm bullish on the sales use case because there's a very straightforward path to an ROI. Like if you can sell your products better and faster, you can enable your sales team and then scale your revenue with an existing sales team. I think that's going to be a huge use case. You asked like how that works. Is that correct, Brendan? You wanted to? Yeah. I think like a new sales rep can learn the product portfolio. If there's consolidation happening in the company, when they absorb a new company through an M&A, then understanding that huge portfolio product that comes in is critical to the sales team. Even for experienced reps to understand how to position the products, one versus the other or versus a competition, that's another area. I think there's a lot of different application areas for sales just to understand the product portfolio deeper so they can help their customers out with a value proposition without having to rely so much on the internal experts within the company. But I'm sure you saw that happens quite a lot.
Yeah, no, in that case that you talked about in particular, it's kind of funny. You might make a chemical for like 50 years, but kind of the uses for it as well as kind of the environment around it is always changing in terms of how you have to, position it. So, we talked a little bit earlier about, using one type of artificial intelligence to, try to predict what kind of safer alternatives could I use to remove a product from, a portfolio that you're wanting to eliminate for reg tox issues or because it's no longer available in the market. The same type of thing exists where, be it trade wars or be it other things, sometimes you can run into product shortages, and figuring out like, how do you best position your product? How do you keep up with regulatory changes? And then how do you effectively communicate that to, a remote and usually pretty broad sales force to make sure they all get the information that they need in order to answer those questions, and then to kind of build upon success from one case to the other, one salesperson to the other, has always been a challenge, when you're dealing with large organizations. So if generative AI can help do that more effectively, I think you do have a pretty solid case for being able to see an improvement in ROI after using it.
Do either of you have any predictions for how use cases might change in the coming 6 months or a year, or anything that's exciting ahead of us?
Well, I think there'll be a lot of quandaries just in terms of, as we talk about, tariffs and things like that, what materials are available in what geography, and that'll actually change their pricing, obviously, by the word tariff. And so I think that'll always create a tremendous amount of churn in terms of what products get positioned for what different types of applications. So I would expect to see a lot of those questions start to rise up at both from consumers of specialty chemicals as well as the chemical companies themselves.
And one of the things that I've seen is around how you measure, like how you objectively measure the value, like having some systems in place to be able to do that. And for example, in sales, like one clear indicator is like the deal velocity. Like, are you able to change that or affect that or shorten that in some form? And oftentimes we've seen like in the chemical industry that sales cycles tend to be pretty long. Right? It could be like 1.5 years, 2 years sometimes. And it's hard to measure how much impact a technology creates on it. So thinking about alternative KPIs that you can use, maybe like an onboarding time of a new rep, and then creating a controlled environment where you could measure a person who has a tool versus who doesn't have a tool, being able to see something like that. Or that was just one example that I could think of, but other KPIs that you can observe and meaningfully measure and see how that changes over time. And that's going to be critical in this year to be able to measure the impact of a technology like this.
Well, any closing thoughts before we wrap up? Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you both so much for your insights. This is just the latest in our new series, and we hope everyone checks back in for the next one. Thanks.